Once again, I'd like to step back into the world of SoulCalibur for a moment. I understand there are several sequels I'm missing before I get to this next game, but for one, I never played SoulCalibur 3. I almost did pick that game up when I first got the PlayStation 2, but I ended up buying 007 Everything or Nothing instead. Plus, to my understanding, the game has severe technical issues that screw up your saves. And while I own SoulCalibur 4 and 5, as of now, I have no methods of recording them. So I'm jumping straight to SoulCalibur VI, which released on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and for the first time in Soul's history, the PC. How does Namco's newest romp with a tale of souls and swords go? Well, let's find out. As with other games in the series, SoulCalibur VI is a 3D weapons-based fighting game, where instead of picking up where SoulCalibur V left off, it pulls a Mortal Kombat 2011 and reboots the story. Unlike Mortal Kombat 9, though, it still follows the basic SoulCalibur formula, in where, in this case, set in the mid-1580s, involves an ongoing conflict among fighters for the hunt for the Holy Blade SoulCalibur and unholy Soul Edge. But there is a slight twist to it, as not only is there a standard story mode for the main fighters titled Soul Chronicle, which is told mainly through nicely illustrated pictures with audio and the occasional animated cutscene, there is a separate story mode for created fighters called the Libra a Soul, similar to SoulCalibur 2's Weapon Master mode but with more of an RPG feel, where you can choose your character to be good or evil and fight against characters in the SoulCalibur series and a bunch of random thugs. As basic as the plot is, it still works in both modes. The gameplay in SoulCalibur 6 is still the solid 3D fighter we've come to know and love, wielding weapons and fighting until one runs out of health or knock out of the ring. And of course, there have been changes over the years, so I'm going to include mechanics that were introduced in past games. The biggest standout for me is the critical edge. Apparently it made its debut dating back to Soul Blade / Soul Edge, but however, my first encounter with it was with SoulCalibur V, which has characters pull off basically ultimate moves doing so much damage, but making more drama if the move was a finisher. In SoulCalibur 6's case, it's holding down a few buttons, or at least one button depending on your personal control configurations. Me, it's holding down the right trigger button, so it's as simplistic as Mortal Kombat 2011's X-Rays, or Zatch Bell Mamoto Battle's Ultimate Spell. And given Bandai's history with anime license titles, it's not a huge surprise they would take some sort of influence there. Going over the arcade mode, however, one thing I don't like is the lack of randomization of stages. Even as you unlock more via DLC or whatever, sans the final level, which did change the final boss corresponding with some of the DLC characters, at least playing the arcade mode on normal, and at one point, Amy was the boss. As of this video, it's Huang. Still, it's mostly the same stages in the same order over and over. You'd think randomization would have been patched, so the only chances you'll see most of them is through multiplayer modes. Also, like with SoulCalibur 5, there is no ending for each individual characters, which kinda blows. That said, I really do like the roster. Though more legacy characters were added via the DLC, the base game did bring back some classic Soul characters SoulCalibur 5 was slammed for missing, especially Sophitia and Taki. And the choice of guest star in the base game was a fantastic one, being Geralt of Rivia of Witcher fame. Hell, DLC guest stars including freaking Haomaru from SNK's Samurai Showdown series, which did weapons fighting well before even Soul Blade, and Tubi from Nier, a sci-fi character, with a robot. So are fans fine with sci-fi characters in SoulCalibur now? Because last time they weren't with certain Jedi and Sith, or with that own franchise be damned, even in the present time. But I shouldn't stop talking about the roster without the character customization, which began with SoulCalibur 3. And honestly, it's the most addictive thing. So many slots and many ways you can create the look of your character. The only thing that's limited are the moves being based on the roster in the game, but that's okay. And of course, that gets added with more DLC. One thing that stinks is that character customization, which is that you can't transfer to Libra Soul. Have fun making the characters again! Now moving on to the graphics, and although it seems a little darker in spots, it still looks great as Namco's own fighters always seem to have stellar visuals and run very smoothly, so no complaints. What is also stellar And one thing SoulCalibur never fails is the soundtrack, beautifully orchestrated even today. Overall, while perhaps one of my least favorite in the series, it sure isn't saying much, as SoulCalibur VI remains a damn great fighter still. Check it out, especially when DLCs go on sale so you don't feel like you're spending too much.